do a quick rapid fire round. I'll show you 3 pictures on the screen over here, and you respond with the first thing that comes to mind. So let's take a look at the first picture.
Look, as I said, Qatar and Turkey gained the most from what's been happening in the past few months, and also it shows it relates to the what seems to be the major motive for this American president, who, on the one hand, as I said, most of what President Trump did was positive for Israel. On the other hand, think of what the scene that we had with Netanyahu in the White House, where Netanyahu is forced to read this dictated apology to Qatar, and there's a Qatari person, we learn later, there's a Qatari person in the room overseeing that Netanyahu would read every, comma, and this is what I think about it, and this is the way this president runs the world. And it's once again, so far been positive for Israel, but we have to be aware of the negative side of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure everyone here in Israel is happy about the Trump administration cozying up. It's not just the Trump administration, I should say. Consistent administrations have been cozying up to Qatar. Let's move on to the next photo.
Look, Erdogan, Israel and Turkey were always on very, very good terms. And even in the first Erdogan years, when he started to be hostile, we still had great military cooperation with Turkey, great intelligence. Yeah, I don't know if people know that. Mossad, at least in 2 instances that I'm aware of, prevented terrorist attacks on Turkey, on Turks, not on Jews or Israeli targets and so on. And Erdogan has his own ambitions. And has definitely a animosity towards Israel. But, being in conflict with Turkey for Israel is a very, very complicated thing. And once again, I would see not the resolution of it, but the management of it through international eyes. Israel will not deter Turkey. Israel will not frighten Turkey. I don't think Israel needs to be frightened of Turkey. But Turkey is also a NATO member, so it's a very complex player, and we need to deal that intelligently through once again, the international structure of the Middle East.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they are indeed end up being part of the multinational force in Gaza. Let's take a look at the third and last picture.
Look, I'm one of the few people in Israel who actually drafted and actually passed through the Knesset a draft bill in 2014. It's not the draft bill that we voted in 2014 is not relevant now. I'll tell you 2 things. One, to me, always the major problem with the Haredi not going into service was not only that after October 7th, there's a lot of talk about the army needs more soldiers, need more combat soldiers. To me, the problem was the readiness, the willingness of the serving public to continue to serve and to be under this huge burden, which has become much larger since October 7th, when 1 in every 6 would-be soldiers is exempt from military service. And of course, there was intent on this in this present coalition to pass a law where that would make it, even a basic law in Israel. And I think the other thing is that there are practical, I wouldn't say solutions, but there are practical things to be done. For example, I'm involved in some of them. Some of my Haredi friends and the Haredi people that I talk to claim that you could create a reserve force of thousands of Haredi ready to really serve for 1 month in defending borders and so on. And this would not solve the draft issue, and this would not solve the first thing that I talked about. But I'm putting this forth because the problem is that the Haredi service problem has become not a practical problem to be addressed. I'm not saying solved, but to be addressed. But it become the focal point of the identity clash in Israel. And once things get there, everybody tends to be less practical. So it's a real problem there.
It'll be interesting to see if it is also a key issue in these upcoming elections.
It will, of course.